National Police Commissioner Fani Masemula says the men and women in blue deployed to Raika Park in Boksburg, where 6 people were gunned down, will remain in the area. The incident, which occurred yesterday, has left community members living in fear. Let's unpack the developments there further now with IRS Forensic Investigations, Chad Thomas. Chad, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. It does appear that drug peddling brings with it gangsterism. In Gauteng, we already know of the area called Westbury. Some very tragic scenes have taken place there in the month of October that has just passed. Now, we're in the new month, November. Raika Park is also suggested to be struggling with drugs and gangsterism. Does Gauteng need to worry about possibly resembling what we see in the Cape Flats?
A very good evening to you. And in answer to your question, it's sadly a resounding yes, we do have to worry. When one looks what's been happening in the Cape, it has replicated itself on the Rand. We've seen from the far East Rand all the way to the far West Rand, in all areas around Johannesburg, there's been major issues in respect of gangs, whether it's infighting, whether it's turf wars. It's been ongoing for the last couple of months. There was an assassination on the Golden Highway of a gang leader by the name of Senki. There was another hit at Mill Park Hospital, another person that went by the name of Blush, who was apparently linked to gangsterism in Raika Park. Of course, the Westbury shooting that you spoke about with the youngsters. And now we see this playing out in Raika Park with 6 people killed and 3 seriously wounded. It's a massive problem. And the unfortunate part is it seems that SAPS is playing catch up and using what we call the Band-Aid approach in trying to sort or settle or contain the situation.
Yeah, I know of one particular MP. I just did not see her in that area today where government officials descended. It was the Premier, including the National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemula. But I heard that Ms. James, the Member of Parliament, who really rose to fame on the back of lolly lounges, and she almost became a lone voice in trying to dismantle these, trying to say, we have to point out at these houses that seem to be housing gang leaders or gang members. It was a very feared thing to do at that time, but she did it. Today, she sits in Parliament, and I'm saying this because the first time I heard of lolly lounges was again here in Gauteng. So once again, I ask you this question, Chad. Is Gauteng slowly becoming a gangland where gangsterism and drugs are becoming more and more entrenched?
It's not slowly, it's here, and it's been here for some time. One can go back. I went to Raika Park earlier this morning, and I met with the family of one of the deceased from last night's shooting. And driving through Raika Park, you could see that it was a relic of the apartheid spatial planning structures. You can see that there are people that are trying to make the best of some of the worst conditions imaginable. And it plays across in all these type of environments, whether it's Rivoli, Alrada Park, whether it's the western townships of Coronationville, Westbury, Nuclear, whether it's Raika Park, or if you go to Pretoria, Easterus, we've got this problem of gangsterism, we've got this problem of lolly lounges. And the tick epidemic in Johannesburg is no different to the tick epidemic in the Western Cape. We're also seeing problems in Port Elizabeth, we're seeing problems in Durban. We're just seeing a lot more violence from the Cape Flats because there's been a vacuum in leadership. And now that we've seen 2 leaders taken out in Gauteng, as a result of that vacuum of leadership, we're now seeing these hits becoming far more prevalent. I mentioned at the outset of the insert, there was the hits of Senki on the Golden Highway, there was the hits of Blush at Mill Park, and this is creating a situation where it's becoming a free-for-all. Very much the same as what we saw in Cape Town, where gang leadership was taken out and people started trying to fill the void. It's extremely viable from a financial perspective to control the turf where drugs are sold.
So let's talk about the response to this by the police. In the Cape Flats, we know that there is a gang unit from the police that literally sits there and tries to deal with the issue of drug peddling, including gangsterism. Do we have a similar unit or a similar outfit in Gauteng and other areas that you've mentioned? KZN, by the way, is also party to this.
Yeah, Phoenix and KZN has been blowing up the last couple of months with turf wars. But we do have the AGU spread across South Africa, the anti-gang unit. You've got components from the Hawks as well as from the normal SAPs that form part of the anti-gang unit and have been trying to put an end to this. But you need crime intelligence to play a far greater role. It's only through crime intelligence that you can infiltrate using 252A projects with informants or undercover police officers that you're able to actually identify, infiltrate, and then dismantle or disrupt gang operations. As it stands right now, the Band-Aid approach of saturating an area with police officers, it doesn't really work only once they've left. It works while they're there, but then they have to go to the next problem. So a lot of the police officers you're seeing in Raika Park today were most probably in Westbury a couple of days ago when Westbury had its shootings. The same plays out across the country. We just have too few resources. It's limited. You've got 180,000 police officers, of which 150,000 are purportedly operational, for a population in excess of 62 million. It doesn't make sense. We need to throw more resources at this. Crime needs to be declared a national security threat so that they can open up more funding. It doesn't help creating the wardens, for example, that have now been disbanded. And when they were created, 500 million was spent on them. I think it would be now closer to 1.5 billion rand over the last 3 years that was spent on the Gauteng wardens, who were never armed, who could never actually prevent crime from occurring. That money could have been far better spent if it was used in our policing structures, and if we start decentralizing our policing structures to provincial and local levels, to start giving our local and provincial levels investigative powers, because they don't have those powers. And at least that will be able to support the police from a operational perspective.
That's a very interesting comment, because you seem to be talking the same language as the Western Cape government. And interestingly, we started this conversation by drawing these parallels between what's happening in the Western Cape, Cape Flats to be exact, versus what is clearly happening in Gauteng. And so perhaps it's fitting that we end the conversation with that very theme, because if in the Western Cape or in the Cape Flats, the police have not been able to stem the flow of drugs and therefore propping up the whole issue of gangsters and the gangsters' paradise, where you have gang leaders who die tomorrow and there's another one that is going to lead whatever gang grouping, then that's how that situation has become entrenched in the Cape Flats. What hope is there that here, where you are saying it's not just starting out, but it's already here, what chance is there that it can be uprooted?
It can't be uprooted in the short term. There's too much decimation of intelligence services, detective services. There's not enough members on the ground to be able to investigate, to make cases court ready. So you find a revolving door at the police stations. A suspect may be arrested, but they're out again. It doesn't help that the investigation powers are contained only within SAPs and not extended to provincial authorities or local authorities. We need to look at a different model, because clearly the current police model we have isn't working. Otherwise, South Africa, with all of its resources, all of its human capital, wouldn't be in the top 5 most violent societies in the world.
Chad, I know I was leaving this conversation, but I'm suddenly reminded of Mpumalanga. We have Mexican nationals that are in this country that are busy in communities, far-flung areas, in a farm where they are busy cooking drugs. They are literally trying to make an industry here, and that was thwarted just a few weeks ago by the police, who are now in the process of actually shutting down that plant. We were reporting on this story last week. So you may not necessarily have gangsterism there in Mpumalanga. The area is called Volksrust, but you clearly have a manufacturing hub, and you have people coming from dangerous countries that are known for peddling drugs, Mexico. Where are we in this country? Why is it so easy to infiltrate this country in this way?
It's frightening to think that the Sinaloa cartel and the Cali cartel have been able to set up shop in South Africa, not just to supply a booming local market, but more importantly, to be able to supply an international market. You must understand, South Africa has always been a transnational point for South American drug syndicates because of our geographic location, the fact that we export so much product to other countries. So a lot of drugs were coming into South Africa, being repackaged and then sent out. It now seems easier to manufacture methamphetamines on our soil and then export it, and also for local use. It's a frightening development, and it goes to what I mentioned earlier. We need a very strong and well-capacitated crime intelligence. The caretaker of the police ministry at the moment in his anti-corruption, when he was wearing that hat and issued a report recently, called for the disbanding of crime intelligence. We can't do that now. We can't just disband. Kalema Motlanthe, when he was caretaker president, disbanded the Scorpions. We can't just disband if something's not working. We need to capacitate and find out why it's not working and make it work, and then look at the projects that they're working on and replicate their successes. We've seen successes in CRTs, ATMs, kidnap for ransom, especially where crime intelligence has worked together with their public and private partners. So we can't disband crime intelligence. We have to capacitate them. Same with state security. We can't disband them, because every time we talk about disbanding, the criminals are thrilled. They rub their hands in glee. We need to just get over this problem. And as I said, we're not going to solve it in the short term. We have to look 5 to 10 years from now, but we have to start containing the problem now through disruptive and dismantling operations that need to be led by an effective crime intelligence component.
Chair Thomas, thank you very much for your time and insights in what is clearly a frightening situation that is engulfing this country. Chair Thomas is from the IRS Forensic Investigations. All right, more news after the break.